You guys ever feel like you've been through the war, you've been through a never-ending war and put through kind of a meat grinder coming out in just pieces? I think there's a lot of, and I think things are tough out there. And I think unfortunately they're just going to get much harder. Um, this isn't the first time people have felt that way. You know, in scriptures, in the Book of Mormon, there was two groups of people that have been at war with each other for 17 years. You know, we've had some wars in this nation, most of the time been fought overseas, you know, like the Vietnam War, that one went on for like 20 years. And how did people feel about that war that happened? They weren't real happy about their young men, their brothers, their sisters, and a lot of the people that were drafted into that war. And I'm sure it would have been much more severe, the reaction to that war going on that long, if it had been on this land in our backyard. Uh, in scripture, in the Book of Mormon, it talks about this war that had gone on for a very, very long time, 17 years. In the Book of Alma, there was two groups of people that were warring against each other. A group of people called the Nephites, another group of people called the Lamanites. They were called that because when they first got here to this American continent, they followed their leader that was called by the name of Nephi or Laman. So if you pick it up in chapter 62, verse 41, I've always thought this was a very interesting verse. And it says, "But behold, because of the exceedingly great length of the war between the Nephites and the Lamanites, many had become hardened. Because of the exceeding great length of the war, many were softened because of their afflictions, insomuch they did humble themselves before God, even into the depth of humility." So the same experience with these groups of people had two very dramatic, different results in their lives. They either became hardened or they became hard-hearted or soft-hearted. So why do some people draw closer to the Lord through long trials and some people become bitter and angry? What does it mean to have a hard heart versus someone that has a soft heart? Have you ever met someone that's just hard? And my wife and I talk about people that we meet, and one of the descriptions sometimes is she just feels hard. She's just been through difficulties in life and it's had a negative effect upon them. Is that the way that we want to live? It seems like some of these people that have been hardened have all of the joy and happiness removed from their lives because of these things that have happened to them. I think some people feel like, well, we've been sent to this world on this earth at this time to have a vacation for 70 or 80 years and then to go back to God and everything's be great. You know, it's all roses, all unicorns, rainbows, and everything's great. That's why we've been sent here, just be on a permanent vacation. And it seems like then things don't happen the way they want it to, that they're angry at God for allowing their dreams to be shattered. You know, it's very interesting. I've had a couple bosses that have had great impressions on me. The first boss I had up north I worked there for 20 years, and he's very kind, understanding, loving. He was a great man. We're still good friends to this day. I learned a lot from him. It's interesting. The second boss I was there for probably 3 years, and and he was very demanding, perfectionist, difficult. I probably learned more in those 3 years than I did in the 20. So sometimes difficulty brings advances in our lives. You know, when we were living up north in the Sandy area, there was a guy that we got to know. I would talk to occasionally, and I found out that he loved motorcycles and he loved life and he loved activity, and he had been married as a younger guy, probably in his 30s. Him and his wife been married for a while, and I'm not sure what happened, but he had an accident or something happened, and he lost his, well, he actually had some injury and he had constant back pain. Um, and I suppose it was pretty severe because it limited, I think, what he could do. But if you looked at the guy, you couldn't really tell. He looked healthy. You would never know he was suffering from constant pain. And I don't know how many years he suffered with that, but a lot of years. And I think after time, he just became depressed, lost hope, became hardened by his experience. One day I was driving down the street and I saw ambulances parked outside his road and the garage door halfway up. And I found out later that he had started his car inside the garage and sat in the garage and let the effects of carbon dioxide take hold, and he killed himself. He had a very difficult life, and I'm not a judge. I thank goodness that's not my position. I have nothing but concern and mercy. I don't know how I'd handle constant pain. I thank God that I don't have constant pain. I'm 52. I'm feeling like I've got more back pain, but nothing compared to what this guy was suffering with. Another example, I have a brother-in-law that has or had a still erection business that he sold to his sons. But while he was working full time, he was working on an LDS temple. He was up on the roof and it was on some island, the Samoan Islands or something, where he was working on a temple. It was up on the roof, and unfortunately, he was walking backwards on this roof, didn't see a hole that was in the roof, and fell through the hole about 30 feet onto a concrete slab. Um, he landed on his right side, pretty much shattered every bone in his body on the right side, leg bones, ribs, wrists, everything. I mean, he was in bad shape. I'm sure at first, when he was first found, he was begging for death. He had so much pain, off the charts kind of pain. They didn't have sufficient hospitals where he was at, so they flew him to New Zealand. And I think everything they did in New Zealand to try to repair him, when he was able to get a flight back to the United States, they ended up having to redo because the medical conditions were terrible. But that's been, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And he lives with constant pain. He's got nerve damage. Those nerves are constantly firing signals that cause him great pain. And one leg shorter than the other now. You meet and talk to this guy, and he doesn't talk about it really, other than occasionally you might see him just wincing, just flexing with the pain that hits him occasionally, that nerve pain. So how has he dealt with things differently than the first guy? As that scripture read, he becomes softened because of their afflictions, insomuch as they did humble themselves before God, even in the depths of humility. So what does that mean? How do you humble yourselves in the depths of humility? Maybe another way of saying that is trusting the Lord in all things, having the attitude about trials that He places things in our lives for our good that are not fun. He places difficulties in our lives to help us. It's what is required for us. Depths of some humility. It's not my will, what I want in life, God, but it's what you see fit that I need. You humble yourself even in the hardest of things. Instead of having an attitude of sorrow and grief, give thanks for what God sees fit to inflict upon you, thank Him for those things and see how your life changes. Thanks.